So with all the things that you need to know about is doesn't matter, you can have consistent messaging on all the platforms. Just make sure that you're creating content that's relevant to the audience on that platform.
And how the hell are you? This is Kurt Mercadante. You're very thankful, you're very grateful, you're very free host of the Freedom Club podcast. And I am grateful you are here, whether this is your first time listening or your 151st time listening, welcome. And if you do like what you hear, even if this is your very first podcast, I would very much appreciate it if you would go to iTunes, if you're listening on iTunes or wherever you listen, and give us a positive rating and review. Tell your friends about us. We continue to grow month after month with listeners around the globe with our mission of freedom and fulfillment. So I thank you for being here. I hope you get value from this episode. And if you want to take action from what you hear today, please go to my website, kurtmercadante.com. Visit around, sign up for my email list, reach out if you feel like you need a dose of freedom and fulfillment in your life. And right now, I want to plug November 8th, our Freedom Club Festival. If you go to my blog, kurtmercadante.com/blog, it's the second or first, I can't remember, blog post. We have pre-sale tickets. We only have 23 pre-sale tickets left for the Freedom Club Festival. There were 50 available. We're going to sell them out, and then the tickets go from $44 to $60. We're going to have 300 people overall there. We have speakers coming from around the world. We have Brandon Steiner, Natalia Vikovsky, Fraser Cameron, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, Bobby Canaro. We have more speakers we're going to announce in the coming weeks. So get your tickets today. We've already had people over the past 2 weeks from Quebec, Korea, Colorado, California, West Virginia. People from around the world are coming down. 2 people from Chicago yesterday bought it. So we're going to have people from around the world gathered here in Charleston, South Carolina, November 8th for the Freedom Club Festival. I want you to be there. Grab your tickets today. And we got a special interview for you today with String Nguyen. Many of you, if you're on LinkedIn and you don't know who String Nguyen is, then you don't pay much attention to LinkedIn. She was like the pioneer of LinkedIn video when it launched back in 2017. And over the course of 14 months, she grew from 0 to 30,000 followers. She had been on Instagram, Snapchat before that. She is an online video Jedi. She's a video evangelist for Shootsta as well. She's 2-time LinkedIn top voice. In today's episode, we geek out on online video, building online communities, entrepreneurship, building a business, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, and all of that. We have a lot of fun. I had the pleasure of meeting String. We both were speakers at LinkedIn Local Plano back in Plano, Texas, in May of 2018. She's just a wonderful person. We had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you get value out of this. If you want to, there's going to be in the show notes, there's a link to find out more about String, to get in touch with her. Of course, if you want to find out more about me, kurtmercadante.com. And I sure hope you enjoy the hell out of today's episode and my interview with String Nguyen.
Welcome to the Freedom Club podcast, where we strive to pull you out of your life of quiet desperation, out of your comfort zone of misery, and propel you into a life of freedom and fulfillment. And now, here's your host for this journey, international speaker and coach, and serial entrepreneur, Kurt Mercadante.
So I want to talk about video, LinkedIn, building communities online. But the first question I always ask my guests is, what does the word freedom mean to you?
When I reach peak creativity.
Nice. We had a guy, Paolo Ciccone. He grew up in Italy, or he's from Italy. He didn't grow up there. I mean, he's only lived in the States for, I think, 20 years. And he said the same thing. When he was growing up, it wasn't far from what was then communist-controlled Yugoslavia. And so he saw some things that were going on. And one of the things he brought up was the first thing that totalitarian regimes always go after is the creative people, and they shut them down. And so he talked about that, and because creativity is the freedom to think. And so some people don't necessarily like that. Not even in totalitarian regimes, in countries you otherwise think are free, right?
Right. But knowledge is a way that questions why and it challenges authority. So I could totally get why people burn books, because it's something that's like, we go control the narrative. And the narrative is like through books or through the story keepers, the librarians, the monks. Like all these people are like usually look after histories or narratives and stuff like that. So I totally get why people want to like kill creativity.
Yeah. Interesting. So creativity, and you mentioned we started off talking about video, and we talked about a little bit online or offline. What brought you to this point? Let's kind of reverse engineer it, right? I first discovered you, but you were making video. You were big on video before LinkedIn even launched LinkedIn Video, and then you were one of the first to the punch. But you were big on other platforms before that. What brought you to that point to do that? And did you ever have a 9 to 5?
No.
A boring 9 to 5?
Like the last time I had a 9 to 5 job was 10 years ago.
What was it?
Interior design.
Did you like it?
Yeah, like when I was interning. But then I kept on doing the same fit outs all the time, and I feel like I wasn't learning much, so my growth stopped. So I needed to find a different form of creativity, and so I became an artist for a couple of years, and I was winning grants, getting exhibitions, and that's where a string story was. It's actually like a string installation, like me being in Spiderweb. So that's how string came about. My real name is Suzanne, by the way.
Yeah, I crossed that off because I was gonna ask you about that. So.
But I just realized it wasn't sustainable enough because I can't rely on grants. So I had to learn. It's like if I had to go back in time, I'll probably learn business or like basic personal finances because I'm still struggling with it now. It's like this year, my goal is to deal with personal finances because I'm making more money, but I feel like where did it all go? So I feel like that's funny as well. Then I moved to a different city. Then I got into the community. That's when I first delved into community, where I got introduced to technology. And because I was like really super inquisitive, I just kept asking, how does this work? Why does this work? And I could almost relate to super geeks as well, and because I didn't know how to it's almost like they were on a different level of playing field. So I had to learn how to articulate what I learned to everyday person. And that's when Meerkat came around. Meerkat was a live stream platform. Have you heard of Meerkat before?
Yeah. I've never used it. I've never been on it, but I've heard of it.
It's like Periscope, but before Periscope squished it with Twitter. So it was like the top 20 worldwide. And that's when my first taste of content, community, channel was developed. And I used that formula for all these video platforms from then on. And I kept on using video because I realized video was a great amplifier of just like great amplifier. If you have a great personality, it just amplifies and pulls in your community. And you used it as well because you pushed video religiously really early on. Like you pushed a lot of video, I remember.
Yeah.
And then I got into Snapchat, which is probably the biggest platform. And to this day, people still message me. It's like, I miss your Snapchat. Because I just
you left it, you don't do much there anymore.
Well, I usually what I realize is it takes you I usually do experiments. It takes me 6 months to and then it's after 6 months of on Snapchat, I wasn't monetizing. I have to be America to monetize properly, I realized. And Australia wasn't really monetizing properly. They prefer Facebook Live over Snapchat.
Interesting.
But that's when the day that I noticed the momentum that Instagram was having was the day that I want to switch over to Instagram. Because I created this course on Snapchat. But then it wasn't getting any momentum. And I'm like, I was because you invested all this, but then I was hoping to recycle it and go switch because the model was very similar, Instagram and Snapchat. So I would have switched over to Instagram straight away. But the day that I wanted to kill Snapchat and move over to Instagram was the day when LinkedIn knocked on my door on Snapchat and messaged me, String, I love your video. Would you like to be a beta user for video, video on LinkedIn? And I'm like, hell yeah.
Nice.
And that week, when I was one of the first people on LinkedIn, watch this. When I have access to LinkedIn Live, everyone's like, how do I get it? How do I get it? Because that's all the comments that I got received when I first did pushed out video. And I treated it like a live as well because I thought it was live.
Yeah.
So I can use the record button, which is something I'd never do on LinkedIn. But like, you know how LinkedIn has a record button?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I've used it once and I just couldn't. It was so horrible that I've never used it again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think no one has used that button, record button, because people just generally upload now.
Yeah.
So I was like there for like 20 minutes rapping with my friend and talking about content. And then I wrote like linked live just to be cheeky. And everyone's like, yeah, LinkedIn Live. And it's like we treated it as if it was a live show. So
Interesting.
that's how we got virality from that day on. And there's only 12 people who have had access to live.
Really? Yeah, I see Lindy Chapman in Dallas has it. And every once in a while I see somebody pop up and I get so jealous because they have.
Yeah. Well, like, to tell the truth, it's like it's not even ready for public yet. So like I'm like bug testing it out. Like it's not really so maybe today like I have the mobile version. I'm going to push it out and see what's going to be like, because one, I have to make sure that the internet can handle it. And do I need a second person to mention who's like asking questions and things like that, because there's a 20-second lag. So all these little details I'm optimizing so I could like tell people and everything like that as well. So that's probably one of the reasons why LinkedIn like me. And one of the reasons why I grow is like I tend to be met up for the first couple months. So I'll probably be very religious about LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
And then like I tell people how to optimize it. And then what happens is like people mimic or like learn from it and do better from it. Or I hope they do better.
Yeah, no, I think it's in the early days, everyone who had video, I tried to mimic certain things. Quentin and I actually hired Quentin early on. He was helping me and he helped me with a number of things. And then I just kind of decided, well, this is what we were talking about offline, is I started becoming a slave to the algorithm and trying to figure out what happens. And it's like, okay. And I became addicted to the 200,000 view video. And I wanted to hit that home run. And so then it was like, all right, I'm only going to do two. But what happened was I noticed in the months at which I got like 400,000 or 500,000 video views, I got 0 clients. Now I'm posting more. My reach, like there was a time I was getting like 40,000, 200,000. I'm getting like 600 views, but I'm getting more people reaching out to me. So it's real interesting. And I'm probably being more focused with my message, et cetera. But I've just come to say, I'm not going to worry about the reach. I mean, I do, it's human nature, but I'm going to do my thing, because if LinkedIn shuts down tomorrow, I can't build everything on LinkedIn, as you learned probably with Snapchat and the other platforms.
Yeah, you can't rely on one platform. And at the moment, LinkedIn is giving me a lot of eyeballs, but that video multi-skill has like brought in me clients that are relevant to what I do. And my business model is like, I just simplified it. Like I'm top of the funnel. Do you want me in front of the camera or behind the camera? That's it. And like when you want me in front of the camera, I treat myself as a talent. So I like make sure that I'm ready to be talent ready, because that's when, for example, like brands will come in to me. It's like, String, can you do a package for us as an influencer? And
so how does that work for everyone listening? Someone comes in and wants you to do a package, and you're in front of the camera.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's like a 1,000 word blog. It's sponsored. Main video, like that's like a YouTube video usually, because I'm growing my YouTube channel, and then a small and then a small video clip to use as a Facebook ads, or like maybe they want me to push it onto my like main distribution channel, and I push that 4 times a year.
Got it. And are you like, is it a straight, when you do this, like a straight promotion of their stuff? Or sometimes I've seen you at events, and so you're at events and it's more like a news package, right? It's not like buy this stuff, or right?
Yeah. So like this one's like a very much like me using their product. So Wix actually asked me to use their product to create landing pages and show the back end experience of it. So I talked about like 7 ways of like 7 ways to optimize your LinkedIn landing pages to get business and stuff. And I showed them how to use I show 7 different ways of like how to use landing pages, for example. And that's like, I'll probably share the link with you. And then after the end of it, they do want you to like set up landing pages. So they would like give me a like affiliate link afterwards to and say, hey, you could set up your own free free account, or there's a premium as well if you want to have more access to like the features. Like they have their own booking systems and stuff as well.
Got
and
it.
it's pretty the drop and drag experience. Yeah.
And you, sorry.
No, not at all.
So there, I know you have courses and you help people and train people on how to use video and build communities. Is that a bigger part, or is more of the sponsored content your bread and butter?
Definitely part of the bigger part, because I realize that a lot of professionals want to future-proof themselves. They want to learn how to be better communicators. And I realize that a lot of corporations better off leverage in their own knowledge brains or knowledge base, but they're not doing it properly because they tend to outsource to other people. But the employees, their own employees, know the product much better than people outside. So if you give them the skill sets, like questions, it's like, how do you do this? And then put a video in front of them. It's like, this is how I would do it.
Sure. Got it.
You could transcribe that and everything like that. The cost of marketing will go down dramatically. And it's authentic as well.
I had a client who didn't like to get in front of the camera, right? And it would take, so I had suggested doing Facebook Lives for this client, and it was going to be perfect. And they already had a big following, and this person didn't like, to do a 5-minute Facebook Live would take like 2 hours of prep, right? Whatever, like memorizing lines, whatever, it would have been horrible. But by the same token, this person was too, is jealous the word, envious, to let the employees and team members, who are all very capable, do the Facebook Lives. So it created this thing that no one's going to do it, and we're going to miss out on this. It was so frustrating, and in this day and age, people still don't get it. I had a client once that it took like 5 different people, including 2 lawyers, in order to do like an hour-long live tweet session. And they were live tweeting an event, but had to run it back, send it, email it, run it through 2 lawyers, run it through someone else, and then send it back to the person who was at the event to live tweet.
I think that's when, like, I guess, like, agility is at an advantage. Like, if you're smaller, you could tend to be a lot more push it out and care less about branding. And I had, like, clients where they got too precious about it. But then, like, I think, if you're just starting out 1 year in, you should be more agile.
Yeah.
Like, you should be just iterating anyway. And then when you have the messaging and everything perfect, then blast it out. But if you're like so precious about a typo, then you're like missing out from the bigger picture. And I had like these conversations with a lot of people, but that specific client just has an ego problem.
Yeah. I hired someone, like I have people help do my videos because I'm a coach. I'm not a video producer. Mm-hmm. I like doing the videos, but I just was spending too much time doing that. And I think right now I'm trying to draw back, because I'm a writer by trade, focusing on little typos in the subtitles. And this person's like, look at Gary V's. There's typos all the time. It doesn't matter. Look at, and so I'm trying to go back and like, I don't even want to just post it I don't even want to look at it,
Are you, like my boyfriend and I have these arguments. Are you the 110% person or the 80%?
Usually I'm 80%. But I'll focus on, I think if I just don't look at it, if I look at it, I don't care. Or if I look at it, I have to fix it. But if I don't know, I don't care. And it's like, I have to be all the way in or all the way out.
Yeah. So like if you play the numbers game, I didn't push for 110%. And within 2 years, I won top voice twice by doing 50%. My boyfriend wouldn't like this. But I was just doing 50% because I was just like playing that, like, just like being just a little bit above from everyone else. Because like what I'm trying to do is like a more of a community game. It's like I just want people to know that this is doable. So that's why Mastery of Video was around, because like I just realized that a lot of times professional has so much knowledge in their head, but they don't know how to like communicate. Like they just need to like get over the like critique or the shyness of just being in front of video. So that's why I created that community in the first place, where to create the safe pit for them to like create little games or challenges, so then they could like start doing videos and realize it's not that hard. It's just all in their head.
Do you think, beyond calls to action and people actually coming in and buying from videos, do you think just the act of getting in front of a video or getting in front of a camera regularly to hone your message and to maybe get past the 110% mentality is just helpful overall, even if you never sell anything, but it's just a good practice?
Because it's an interpersonal skill. It's like, it's good communication. It's like builds up your self-confidence. And then when you know how to like build up self-confidence, it has this like way of like, it's almost like the mindset thing, right? People who are in front of the camera are in front of the camera because they have the confidence to be themselves on camera. It's just the talking head style wise. And like for people who like, people critique my like, my captions and things like that, but I look at their ones and they never like themselves use videos. So what right do they have to critique me for doing video in the first place? Like I know that like the very few people have the courage to do video. So anyone who's doing video, it's not important. It's not even like about doing one video. It's important to get over that, learn from that first experience and optimize and like reiterate to be better the next time.
I hired a group. They do kind of the back end stuff and building a funnel, and they do some stuff for like Frank Kern, the Facebook ads. They do some stuff like that. And what one of the things they were saying was, and I think it was to the 80% versus 110%, and kind of back to what I was talking about in terms of I'm posting more frequently, which is probably killing my per post reach, but it's more effective in terms of the outcomes I want, which is building a business, right? Mm-hmm. And he made a comment. He's like, this is going to sound bad, but it's almost better to put out a lot of, he used the word mediocre, but I know he didn't mean necessarily mediocre, but a lot of probably 80%, 70, 80% content, putting out a lot of it versus putting out one or two 110%. And I've noticed that,
Yeah. So that's because like the basic thing is like, it's not YouTube we're playing here. YouTube is all about that 100 to 10% usually, because it's like the way that, so like LinkedIn is all about the feed experience. This is me geeking out. The feed experience is all about the mobile. Like our mobile means like you have to like, we have to play this game.
Yeah.
Right? So that means like content, the feed goes like pushes things down because there's other things. If your network is like 30,000 people, imagine like having 30,000 people just pushing on top of each other. But they're not like usually it's like probably 3,000 people, right? 10% of the 30,000 is probably content creators. So what happens is like 3,000 people are like just pushing each other's content down and down and down and down. So the game is like you have to actually try to be relevant content on top. So every time you push it, like comment, like it actually goes on top and pushes out to their network. So that's how you get the virality happening at the moment. So like I even did like test experiments of like my first video that I did and just like, does anyone see this comment? It's like, yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's funny. Yeah, I used to be in pods and I used to be online and I just got out of them because it's like, if I have to build $1 million business by kind of sitting there myself and now they went after pods and my reach went down, then it went up and then it goes down. It's like, you can't worry about that as much or it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah. And just a comparison, like YouTube is all about the SEO because remember YouTube is owned by Google. So you have to have a really relevant SEO kind of thing to like put content that's super relevant. So people will watch this, like if you have a relevant content for about like how to do LinkedIn, people will like type that in every day or 2 years later, how to do LinkedIn. So whereas like LinkedIn doesn't give you that option to watch content from a year ago.
Right. Yeah.
So there you go. So like if you want to like play on LinkedIn, you have to play the frequency game because frequency is more important on top of mind marketing. That's why. Whereas like YouTube is all about like, you could do push out once a week, but it's better on LinkedIn to push at least a minimum 3 times a week.
I noticed, so I'm at like 22,000 followers and my reach is a fraction of what it was when I was 9,000. And I'm pretty selective in my followers. I don't like accept everyone and all that. And I've had some clients who they come to me with their goals and their goals are to get to X amount of followers. I'm like, no, that's not really a great goal, but and they don't produce content. It's like, how about you start producing X amount of content per week? That's a better goal than followers, because I see people with a lot of followers who don't do a lot of great content. And so those followers don't mean anything.
Yeah. So I think so, because I think everyone has this weirdness of like, what is the KPI they're trying to reach? They think eyeballs will bring clients, but eyeballs doesn't bring clients. If you actually focus to like saying, I want 3 clients of this caliber, who spends this much, I go like a $20,000 budget per month. Half of it is on ads. Then that client knows his shit about marketing. But if you come to me saying that I want 20,000 followers, then it's like, okay, you want to play the eyeball game. Here is someone who will like play that game for you. Like, I just go give you a bot tool to like do that for you. But just know that you're not going to have the type of clientele, because make sure, like, you'd rather have people paying you for business, because LinkedIn, people play the eyeball game. And I'm like channel, but I'm still like focusing, like, I'd rather be known as for conversion. So I want brands to come to me and saying, hey, like, I get compliments for engagement still. Like, that's because like them themselves can't generate that kind of engagement.
Forgetting the big, I don't want to say big name, but the influencers who get a lot of views and a lot of, all that on LinkedIn. The average Joe and Jane schmo business owner.
They're not going to be producing content every day like that.
Yeah. What do you see them doing wrong most of the time? If they get,
do you mean like the people coming in to create content on a regular basis for eyeballs, or the
yeah? There's a lot of new like small business owners, say, who are producing content, and then they'll say it's useless. I'm not getting anything out of this. What do you see as
most of the times I feel like they have the wrong messaging, or the way they approach content kind of feels like they're trying to sell something when they should be providing value. Wrong mindset. It's actually like video. When it comes to video, it's like the frequency that you give, the energy you give. And when you're like in a sale, like if you like give yourself like, I'm going to sell something, this like sales mode come on and people get turned off, automatically get switched off by the sales mode. But then there are also people who don't mind their sales mode. There are like probably like 5% or like 1% who like are ready to buy something. But before you get like buy mode, you have to like prove your credibility first. If you have no credibility, who the fuck will buy from you?
Yeah, there is, I worked in politics for many years, and it was, we used to have a saying in the campaign office that was, when we in the campaign office get sick of seeing our ads, that's the time to start running the ad even more, because the average person hasn't seen it. And there's some people out there I know who are like, oh, I've talked about that message too much. People are getting sick of it. It's like, there's 526 million people or whatever on LinkedIn. You reached 1,000 people with that video. There's a lot of people who haven't seen your message yet.
Yeah.
But I guess I got consistency and the frequency.
So the one that like I always run regularly is my Gary Vee video.
And you just, yeah.
And that gets a lot of like, that always gets about 1,000 likes regularly.
Yeah.
People love it. It's like, oh my God, you got interviewed by Gary Vee. It's like, because a lot of inspiring content creators want to like live Gary Vee's lifestyle, but he has a team behind him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I want to ask you about. So you're a video geek, right? And so do you have a team behind you? And because a lot of times I hear from small business owners is like, oh, well, one of the things I try is like, you got to delegate stuff. You got to delegate everything, or whatever is not in your strengths zone. Do you have a team behind you, or are you sitting there like? Because sometimes you have an event, and you'll have something up that night. If you go cover an event.
Yeah. So I use like one of my first secret tool that I use is called Twinsy. It's like a virtual assistant team. And they help me with like posting, but like my role is still to create content. So I have to have them have stuff for them to like create content. So I ask them to do research quite a lot. So I could like think about things, and like I'm actually in more of a YouTube headspace a little bit, and like thinking about more philosophical questions because I want to go more deep dive now. Okay, I'm going on a tangent, but to answer your question,
oh, it's great.
Answer your question, like I do have a personal assistant because I have such an international clientele. Like she helps manage my inbox for me and my bookings because like that's one of the things that I was super annoying, because I remember spending half an hour just having a back and forth conversation with people just about time zones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not like fruitful of that time for me. So what I learned is like I've like hired like a personal assistant who just like managed my calendar. And if I don't want to book any more time, I just like block out times and say, don't book me this time. And then she'll just push people out of that calendar if I need to. So she does that for me. So I could focus on content creation. And like I also have a video editor because like that's something that I want to push more out of. So like these things like are really important to me. So it is important to like stop thinking like a solopreneur and like start delegating, because there are resources and tools out there to like help you grow as a business as well.
Yeah.
And the question is scalability,
right?
Yeah. And the question is like delegating. Because like we're not experts. Like funnel, like I love knowing more about marketing funnels, but I know there will be people who do like 100% versus like a 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. I met with a business owner this morning, and he and his wife's putting together a coaching program, and they've been for months been putting together the funnel and then the emails. It's like, just hire someone. I tried that. And then it was like, I'm a coach. I want to coach. I want to speak. I want to write. I want to, I don't want to be sitting there building a website. I don't want to be sitting there doing logistics. I don't want to be sitting there doing these things. And other people will ask me, well, how do you only work X amount of hours a week? It's like, because I hire people to do this stuff. Oh, I see you commenting at night. That's not me necessarily. I mean, I do pop in and do stuff, but sometimes I have people who will help push people through the funnel and help edit stuff and help. And
at least you're transparent about it, because like I mentioned you, and then you were like just doing stuff on like setting it up, and then I received a message saying thank you on Instagram. It's like, that's not Kurt, that's his like assistant or back end team.
Oh, you did on Instagram, really? Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's like he does like but the fact you're transparent about it is okay. A lot of people try to hide them saying they're superwoman teams. Like, no, there's always like the fact that you kind of just like revealed the secret is something a lot of people are like, oh, why do you do that for? But I think it's really important to be transparent about it.
And there's still things I need to outsource, like me screwing up the whole Facebook live stream, stuff like that. But actually, on Instagram, who set that up for me was Steffo and those guys, Steffo Team Point, the buff Harry Potter. Yeah. And all right. So looking at let's look at I was going to say the big three, but I don't know if Twitter. Let's just look at Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and just kind of lightning round going through. If you had to give someone one piece of advice on each, what would it be? Starting with Instagram.
Okay, like I already have this already, so I'm just going to do it my way. All right. Like one thing that you should know about me is like I love fried chicken. So, but I'm going to show you how to use social media properly using fried chicken. Facebook, I like fried chicken. Twitter, I hashtag like. I like hashtag fried chicken. Spotify, let me create a playlist of about rap songs about fried chicken. YouTube is watch me eat and cook fried chicken. Pinterest is, hey, like here's all my recipes about fried chicken. And Instagram is like, here's all my food porn about fried chicken. So with all the things that you need to know about is like, doesn't matter, like you can have consistent messaging on all the platforms. Just make sure that you're like creating content that's relevant to the audience on that platform. And that's all you need to know.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. I have on Instagram, at this point I'm repurposing content, and LinkedIn has been it. I'm starting to get stuff on Facebook now, but I haven't figured it out on Insta and or
Instagram. You should do more ads. Oh yeah, and LinkedIn is like my skill sets includes fried chicken. But then like all you have to do is like realize that your audience is probably definitely more on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of people there who are corporate people who want to get out.
Yeah.
And they're definitely, and if you just like build up your clientele or like a channel and just building up that, then organically you're just going to attract the type of people that wants to do it. And your podcasting, that's like, if either like podcast is definitely it for you, because there's a lot of corporate people who have a lot of headspace, you need time, and podcast is like one of their like go-to platforms now to consume content.
Yeah, after a year, I'm finally getting people from my podcast through to LinkedIn or through to Facebook or through to my Facebook group. But again, it's that consistency. There's people who do a podcast for a month and they're like, I'm not getting anything, or they make 3 videos and they're like, it didn't work for me. And then they give it up. And it's like, well, you got to be consistent.
Yeah. People give up too easily. So have you heard of what I've been thinking more deep dive on, like the nature of the fragile nature of humanity.
Wow.
That's deep,
is this what you're going to be talking about on YouTube?
Well, like, it's because like, it's like this. I realize like, in a first world country, we've become so complacent that we don't even try anymore.
Yeah.
So when we're like just a little like wound or like a little thing, the ego hurts, they give up. That's the fragile nature of humanity right now that we're facing. And technology has made it so convenient for us that we like kind of like trained ourselves to like get everything just come to us. So when they get rejected for dating sites, for example, or things like that, it's like, oh, I'm going to cry into my mama now. But I feel like that's the case of like the nature of content creators. And people ask me, how could you do it for 10 years and not like give up? And it's like, I'm doing it because like I just like to know how it works. But also,
you're having a glow there from the back.
Yeah. So it's kind of, God is telling me that this is like the thing that I need to go around. I'm joking. But like, I really believe that this is like this pathway that I'm going deep down into it. And I realize that it's almost like this. The Me Too movement also made men scared of asking women out. But women should be asking men out. But women have never asked men out before. So they're even more scared of men who are getting rejected because they never have been rejected before. And business is like that as well. You have to get hundreds of no's. But if you don't like reiterate from their last experience, you never go like fine tune your messaging. So you have to go through hundreds of no's and build up the community. And the community will tell you like all the things you need to know on how to optimize. But people like there's clues around us, but people are so fragile because they're like in their own little bubble right now.
Yeah, I had a guy, I actually had to, we parted ways in my coaching community. He wanted like an immediate, like, and it wasn't a one-on-one coaching thing, and it was community. And he wanted like immediate pixie dust to immediately fix his business. And it was like, dude, I feel like, to your point, I feel like I'm like, I was going to say America, but I guess it's probably extended beyond that to a number of Western countries, right? That everyone wants an easy button. It's like, I'm not healthy. All right, take a drug. My kid can't sit still in school. Give him a drug or her a drug. I don't want to make lifestyle changes. I don't want to work for it. I don't want to give this up or that up. Because if I could just take a drug or hit a button or do whatever it is, or even like, studies that show that our attention spans are like less than that of a goldfish. And, where it used to be where you would sit there and it was such a pain to get up and flip an album over or like take the cassette out. So you would listen to the entire album from start to finish. And there was, artists would put together songs in certain, and now it's just all singles, right? Because if you're 5 seconds into it and you don't like it, you change it. You change it. Yeah. You change it. And
so that's what I mean. And we kind of trained ourselves to do that. I was actually reading an article, like an intense article about how universities' parents are gamifying a pain or like cheating their way for their kids to get into the colleges they want to.
Goodness.
Like, see, that's what's happening right now because there's like, I want that name for my child or that university for my child, but she is not that smart or she doesn't want to work for it. So we just go pay our way in.
Yeah. There was actually today, if you're listening, it's in the podcast, this was a couple of weeks ago, but today here in the US, a big police sting. These rich parents were paying their way in gaming. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Yeah. And there were some celebrities, like 2 actresses, and it's such a joke. It's, yeah.
And college is so pricey anyway, and they're taking away from people who really want to be in there in the first place. But I thought that was super interesting. So that's why I'm like going in deep dive on the idea of like the fragile nature of humanity.
Yeah.
And why do you think Gary Vee is so popular? He just tells them how it is.
The funny thing is though about Gary Vee, and you've seen my videos. I get, so Judy Fox, who's a video creator, I met her in New York at Richard Moore's event, and she's like, "Oh, you're really nice in person." I'm like, "You didn't think so?" She's like, "Well, you're kind of going after people and telling them that like their comment was the stupidest comment you've ever read." I'm like, "Well, if they're trolls, I go after them, and if they're dumb, they're dumb, and that's just the way it is, you know." And I was telling someone that Gary Vee, it's funny because he has such uh, and I'm not going to get into the whole millennials versus whatever, because I think actually a lot of my generation, when they were younger, were probably a little bit soft too, and it's probably an age thing. But Gary Vee has such a high audience amongst a certain age range, and like you said, he's popular because he tells it like it is. Yet, such a high percentage of those people that watch and nod their head probably go around and live their lives completely the opposite of what he's saying. You know, about you're going to die, stop making excuses. And then they turn around and then they need, Kleenex and a box of crayons because they're crying because, like you said, they don't have the easy button. And
Yeah. Well, like, I guess like because like they don't want to have self accountability, so they try something and it didn't work out. Instead of assessing them, it's like, what did I learn from this, or what can I learn from it? How can I do it better next time? They don't think like that. They try to blame it on someone else. So that's probably why Gary Vee is like saying, take accountability of responsibility of your own actions and the consequences. It's almost like parents. I do feel like sometimes parents are contributing to this because they want, like, they think it's like they're hard. Then why should the kids be going through these hardships and stuff like that as well? But I actually think that you're limiting their immune system to like deal with stress.
yeah,
So our suicide rate and depression is like actually going more higher because men don't have, or women and men don't have an outlet to do something for whether they chose. Like war was their thing before, was the survival of the fittest before, right? So men got like from a very young age got trained to like be warriors and things like that. But now they don't have that output. So imagine, like, I actually think like schools are actually like limiting our immune system to be like self-reflective because it's like a factory that hasn't changed since like the revolution days. So that's why I'm just thinking, I'm like, I guess I'm going on a deep dive because like I actually think technology, like I love technology, but I also have to look at it's like, what is it doing for humanity?
yeah. It's. I think that I call it coerced conformity, where there's a book, we homeschool our kids because I don't want them to grow up in that factory. And there's a great book called Free to Learn by Dr. Peter Gray, and he talks about kids don't play anymore, because of liability. They're not allowed to climb trees in city parks because the city's afraid of getting sued. You don't let them do anything. There's no freedom to play, so they don't learn how to be creative, which, as you said, is a key point of freedom, or how to go outside and, all right, there's 6 of us. Let's figure out a game and let's create the rules as we go. And instead, it's structured, and there's no free time. It's you got to go to school from 6:30 to 2:30, and then you're going to have band practice, choir practice, and then you're going to have cross country practice, whatever it is, and then you're going to come home, and then you're going to do homework for 2. So you have that for like the bulk of your life where everything is given to you. Everything is structured. Everything is, you got to get into college. You got to get into this college. We're going to get you an interview to get into kindergarten. And then you get into college and it's all laid out. And, I coach a lot of people in their 40s who are now the products of lives that were laid out for them when they were like 10. And here in the US, 7 in 10 suicides, like it's not even close to any other demographic, is white men 45 to 54. And I think a lot of it is because of that. And, I'll see them and I had someone say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It's psychosis." And I've talked to suicide survivors who said, "No, there's part of that, but there's part, biochemical reasons, but there's also lifestyle decisions and choices. And, if you get to 45, 50 and you feel trapped and you're in a lifestyle that you never wanted, but was laid out for you and you haven't been able to, kind of sharpen your weapons in any type of way, like we used to."
Yeah. I think when now like people leave the corporate jobs and they realize it's like, what have I achieved in the last 10 years? Because like when they thought about it, they were part of this corporate game, but they weren't really contributing to anything, right? So they feel like they haven't really achieved their life purpose. And I think the epiphany moments happen for a reason for a lot of people is like but just finding your purpose in life would like allow you to enrichen yourself much better. And I guess like what I'm trying to say is like you found your purpose and I found mine, and like waking up every day is like a joy. Like it's like finding that person that supports that passion and that purpose is like a joy as well. So like make decisions, like, you know, you optimize your life in many ways to see if you can make that purpose happen more into a reality. So it's like, instead of calling it a dream, it's like, yeah, I made my life a reality.
Yeah.
Like everyone calls it a dream, right? And it's like, it's a dream for a reason. But if you like live your life to your purpose into a reality, then that's like the best way to live authentically.
And by the way, you're sitting in Melbourne right now. Did I say it correctly? I've heard Melbourne.
It doesn't matter. Like if anything, like that's just an indicator that you're from America.
If you say Melbourne,
yeah.
Is it? But you travel a lot. Have you been traveling lately, or a lot lately, or?
No, just more locally, like more like on the east side, because like I have clients now in Brisbane and Sydney who are like talking to me a lot more. And then like I'll probably go expand to Southeast Asia. But it's just like I want to go back to like VidCon again in July in America as well. Like the last 2 years I've been like traveling a lot, just building up my networks and like finding a lot of geeks and technology and stuff. So I'm just building up my I'm just being thankful that I could like sit down and just like focus now.
As you travel around, whether it's the US, Europe, Southeast Asia, what is, as you meet with people, whether they're in tech or whatever, everyone likes to talk about the differences between countries, races, genders, and everything.
Yeah.
What's a common thread that you've seen as you've traveled?
Food is like a good one. But like some of the conversations that we've been having, it depends on the type of person and what isn't. Like I always find that every person has something to fight for. And just like finding if they're willing to have that conversation is really important. Because if you don't show that you're non-judgmental, they're not going to have that conversation in the first place. But a lot of times, like a lot of people talk about gender politics is like a very like, I think, is it a worthwhile conversation to have? Because most of the time, like gender politics is like, identity politics, I should say.
Yeah, right.
Because it's very like, again, it almost links back to the idea of like fragility. So like the more they focus on their internal stuff, like it's only when they think about systematic stuff do they become more selfless.
Yeah.
And like, so it's like when they talk about things, but they always talk from their first point of experience, then they're talking from their ego.
I get worked up about it. And regularly I'll talk about certain things and talk about my business that I shut down. And invariably I get not as much as, probably because LinkedIn is not Facebook, and it's not Twitter. I get
people. I reckon that people do want to talk about it, but people just get angry about it.
Well, that's the thing. I get people who can't, I'll talk about a certain thing in the lifestyle and someone will say, well, you could at least acknowledge your privilege. It was like, I'll let you worry about that. I mean, in my view, if you're sitting there all day, paralyzed, worrying about someone else's privilege or your lack thereof, and then you have someone like Quentin Allums, who was like negative $900 in the bank, his dog get hit by a car and he got dumped and lost his job on the same day. And he was like, screw it, I'm going to build a business, right? He didn't sit there and was like, oh, woe is me. I'm going to, and...
It's an entrepreneur though.
Yeah.
It's an entrepreneur, right? Like entrepreneur, like despite the like things that goes against them, they're willing to risk it all.
Yeah.
That's the difference between someone who's like safe and not safe. Like entrepreneurs are fucking crazy, man. Why would they like willing to like mortgage their house and risk their family's lifestyle or something like that just for their own dream?
Totally. And it'll be interesting to see how, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who probably, or up and coming entrepreneurs who fit into that box that you talked about earlier in terms of they want that easy button. And
would you call them entrepreneurs? They're probably more consumers to me.
They're wannabe entrepreneurs, right? They jump in, they try it, and then they sit and they cry, and then they go back to a corporate job, right?
We're like if you have to listen to this, we sound like we're bashing people, but we're actually just talking about like the reality is like the hardship of building a business is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
And people have this like assumption that for you to achieve, yeah, there is freedom in what we do, but there's also limitations in what we do. It's like if you only have X amount of money in your bank, it means that you have to make hard choices where the money goes.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
like you also have like if you have family as well, it's like, okay, I need to make this much money. So I actually think family is a biggest drive for you to make X amount of money to like strive for what you need to achieve as well.
Yeah, I call it the destitution line. It's like figure out your line at which like you just got to make that and get to that. It's like 12,000 a month. All right, what do you charge? Well, I charge 2,000 a month. Well, just let's get 6 clients over the next 6 months. Oh, really? Like, yeah,
Just basic things. But that's because like they don't learn this stuff, right? So when they're so new in the corporate game, they never had to think about that because they always have a paycheck that comes in then thing. So that's what I mean. Like, so like fragility is like this. Who do you think will survive better? A corporate person who gets paycheck every 9 to 5, who just has one job, or a taxi driver who has to rely on multiple people, more people driving his car, the more he has to survive. Who do you think is going to be survivor at the end of the day?
yeah.
The 9 to 5 or the taxi driver?
Taxi driver.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting because the amount of taxi drivers I meet who were like, nuclear physicists and they fled, they're a Syrian refugee and now they couldn't get a job and now they're a taxi driver. They're surviving. They're doing what they have to do. And, the corporate, a lot of times you find corporate people who just sit there and they get paralyzed. There's nothing I can do. And so they sit there. It's like, well, go drive a taxi.
But they think it's the ego doesn't want them to do that because it's underneath them.
Yeah.
So the 9 to 5 though only has one thing to worry about, but when they don't have that paycheck anymore, they get so paralyzed to do everything else. But the like taxi driver, like he would always find the next opportunity.
My dad, he was about 55 and, he had grown up during the Great Depression and his dad came here from Italy with like nothing in his pocket. When my dad was in his mid 50s, so this had been like 1984. He was president of a company and got fired, quit, whatever happened. And so he looked for a job for like a year and a half, 2 years. It got tough. And he got a paper route. He would get me up at like 4 a.m. I was probably 9 years old and take me to the facility where I would have to bag newspapers. And then we'd hop in the back of the station wagon and he would drive around. It was still dark out. I hated it. And we would drive around these neighborhoods and I would throw the newspaper out the back. And my dad was making, I don't know, $4, $5 an hour. And he was 55 years old. And I see some people who just would not be willing to do that ever. And it was I'm sure it pained my dad to go through it. He never complained. And it was one of the best learning experiences I ever had in my entire life. Because
only like after like he thought about it.
Right. Yeah. At the time I hated it, but then back and I remember, I think about that all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. What are people doing? And so people on LinkedIn will accuse me of being mean. One guy said, I can't jump into your program because, some people are just trying to make it and, you're just too hard on them. And
do you want to be the thing is you can't be too nice. You're coached for a reason because like you want them to push past a certain point. Yeah, it's not like you're doing them to like push them down. You're doing them to push them up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's I'd say 80% of the people see it that way, but then there's the 20% who want their box of crayons and their Kleenex. And I tell them, I said, if you went out for the track team, do you want a track coach who picks you up and runs the 100 meters for you? Or do you want one that teaches you how to do it? And when you're doing it wrong, corrects you. And when you're doing it right, applauds you, takes you out for a drink or whatever. And some people want the track coach who picks them up and runs the race for them.
But that's not a track coach.
Yeah. 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 It's an enabler.
But I guess so. Like, see, like a lot of times, like you should probably just look this word up, anti-fragility. Like all of the things that I talked about in the last like half an hour when we just like talked about like how like soft people are.
It's not everyone, but there's a lot of people. There are people who do it. I'm sure you see it, and
Yes, I do. Because a lot of times, like they want this easy solution, and Gary Vee gives everyone the solution, but there'll be very few people that will like just do it, execute it, right? And because if you're in the coaching game, because I actually created it my own, and because I had to like also like push people up to a certain level, I could appreciate where you're coming from a lot, and I just realized that people are so like precious now, and we can't. And it's also like if you treat them too preciously, they're not going to like build up the immune system. And if anything, they don't have the internal caliber or stuff to like still to like build up the still in them to like go through life, because we live longer now.
When people worry about certain problems that are not important, it means that we need bigger problems. And I always say, like, God forbid we find ourselves in a world war, because it's going to be pretty clear. I can predict by name who would survive, and who wouldn't, based on kind of the certain activity I see. I see it on LinkedIn. I see it, there's a back end community on LinkedIn, and some of the stuff I see, it's like, you know what?
I hope we don't have a war. Because I know I won't survive. Because like I'm like I probably run a bit, and then I'm like, I'm going to die right now.
Yeah, but the people who build up the immune system, not even fighting in the war, just being able to deal with that. And you have people right now who are. I had one person. I talked about the word. Oh gosh, what was it? It was. This is a bad example, right? I can't remember the word, but I talked about. I don't want to say aggressiveness. When something's holding you back. Oh gosh, it's been a long day. Anyways, she was like, I don't like to talk about that because that's such a negative word. And I was like, it is a negative word. That's the point. It's going to make you stronger. It's, there's a reason the roaches are going to survive the next, the nuclear holocaust, because they've been toughened up to deal with it. People who get sick build up an immunity. And some people never want to have that. They want everything, like you said, they become so fragile that any type of obstacle that's in their way, they fold. And that's a big reason I do what I do, because I want to toughen them up, but they got to be willing and ready.
And it's business, right? Like business is like that. It's not meant for the fragile person.
Yeah, exactly. Well, String, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm almost out of sunlight. I'm like darker and darker. And
I'm getting brighter and brighter.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it. And let me know when you're coming back to the States.
I will.
I'll have to plan I'm doing Freedom Club local events around the country. So I'll have to plan one around where you're going to be.
I will let you know. Like, I think LA is like where I'm going to be.
Cool.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, String. Take care.